My name is Dr. Elise Eifert. I'm the graduate coordinator for the Gerontology program at UNC Greensboro. On behalf of the Gerontology program and myself, thank you for being with us tonight to hear from Dr. Donna Schafer, who is going to speak about the professionalization of gerontology. This presentation is part of UNCG's observance of Careers in Aging Week. Careers in Aging Week was created by the Gerontological Society of America to raise awareness about the diverse careers available in the field of aging and to celebrate current employees in the profession. Tonight's event is one of many occurring this week. Please check out our social media to learn more. The Gerontology program is on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We will be sharing information about different events, and we hope you can join us for more. Lastly, we want to encourage you to be vocal about careers in aging during this time. Please share your story and encourage others to pursue careers in aging. Without further ado, I want to introduce our guest presenter tonight. Donna Schafer has served as Executive Director of the National Association for Professional Gerontologists, or NAPG, since 2006. During that time, she has written and spoken frequently about the need to professionalize gerontology, including accreditation of gerontology degree programs, credentialing of gerontology degree program graduates, and hiring of educated gerontology professionals. Currently, she is also a member and secretary of the Board of Governors of the Accreditation for Gerontology Education Council, or AGEC. Donna's most recent research focuses on the measurement of competencies in gerontology. She has presented on this topic at national meetings of the Association or Academy for Gerontology and Higher Education, the Canadian Association on Gerontology, and the Gerontological Society of America. She is author or co-author of 3 books and numerous articles and conference presentations focusing on various topics in social gerontology, gerontological education, and graduate education. Prior to her association with NAPG, Donna retired after 6 years as Dean of Research, Graduate Studies, and International Programs at Humboldt State University in California, where she also was Professor of Sociology and Executive Director of the Humboldt State University Sponsored Programs Foundation. She served as a member of the Gerontology faculty at San Francisco State University for 12 years and was Associate Dean of the Graduate Division for 6 of those years. She is past president of the California Council on Gerontology and Geriatrics, the California State University Graduate Dean's Council, and the Western Association of Graduate Schools. Before moving to California, Donna was a research associate in the Gerontology Center at the University of Kansas, where she earned her PhD. She has served on the boards of community and social service organizations in Kansas City, San Francisco, and Healdsburg, California. Donna, you might have to correct me if I'm mispronouncing that.
That's exactly right.
Healdsburg, okay, where she currently resides with her husband, Forrest Borghorn. Dr. Schafer, thank you for joining us this evening. It is our pleasure to host you here at UNCG. I will turn the floor over to you. The screen is yours.
Okay, let me share it. Well, first of all, thank you. Before I do that, thank you, Elise. And it's just a real pleasure for me to be here. As I was saying before the session started, when I was a faculty member at a university, we used to observe Careers in Aging Week, and I always thought it was great fun. And I've sort of missed it, you know, since I have left university employment. So it's a treat for me to be able to join you today and participate in this again. So thank you for the invitation. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Let's see if we can do this. All righty. So that's what I'm going to talk about today is our organization, but also I want to talk about it in the context of our role in professionalizing gerontology and just some thoughts about the profession of gerontology in general. So my presentation today is going to be in 4 parts. In the first part, I want to talk about some of the skills that I think we have as gerontologists. And especially I want to talk about the fact that I don't believe we always do a good job as gerontologists, as students and faculty members and graduates, of really explaining and conveying to people what it is we're able to do and what our skills are. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. In the second part of the presentation, I want to talk about NAPG's role specifically in professionalizing gerontology, and how we see ourselves functioning with other organizations in the field. In the third part, I'm just going to give you some sort of facts about the organization itself. And lastly, what we see as our future goals and directions. And I am not able to see the chat if there are questions, but I'm happy to take questions. And so the first two parts are on the shorter side. So after those two, I'll definitely try to stop, and maybe if I forget, Elise can chime in. And if there are questions, you can tell me what they are, and I'll be glad to respond. And then of course, questions afterward. Okay. Okay, so in 1993, this is the first part, who we are and what we can do. In 1993, Pam Wendt, David Peterson, and Elizabeth Douglas developed this, it's a booklet actually, Core Principles and Outcomes in Gerontology. And it really is a foundational document defining what gerontologists know and what they can do. It identified knowledge and skills, competencies, really, organized according to some broad interdisciplinary themes that cut across traditional disciplines. And I always like this approach very much, because I think we can often get kind of wedded to the idea of the sociology of aging and the psychology of aging and so on, when we're sort of discipline focused. But in this case, the themes were clearly broad and cross-cutting. They were things such as stability and directions of change, okay? Structure, context, heterogeneity. So they were very, very interesting and very compelling way, I think, to organize gerontology knowledge. This work was extended some years later in 2014. A task force that was organized by Augie developed the gerontology competencies for undergraduate and graduate education. And this publication specifies 3 categories of competencies: foundational competencies that are common to all fields of gerontology, interactional competencies across fields of gerontology, and contextual competencies across fields of aging that represent specific specializations. And I might add here that the competencies form the basis of the student learning standard that is used for accrediting gerontology degree programs, for instance, such as your program at UNCG, right? So I'll have more to say about accreditation in a bit, but first I wanted to focus a little bit on some of these skills and competencies. And what I tried to do here was just summarize a few of them, put in sort of plain language. We know how to do, as gerontologists, we know how to do assessments. We know how to develop appropriate intervention strategies. One of the things that gerontologists, given our interdisciplinary bent, one of the things that we can do certainly is to coordinate the work of professional teams. I think we can identify and organize community resources. Certainly there are gerontologists who frame effective policy at various levels and in various spheres, and we can evaluate the effectiveness of programs. I think as gerontologists, we sometimes struggle with defining ourselves. People, and this includes employers, usually know, or at least think they know, what it is that a social worker does, or what it is that a nurse does, but not so much a gerontologist. They don't always know what a gerontologist knows and what a gerontologist can do. So it really is up to us, I think, to kind of define ourselves in ways that are a little better and more accessible. And I think the competencies are a great way of kind of organizing our thinking about the skills and the skills that we could bring to bear on solving and dealing with some of the problems of older adults. Okay. So let me move on then to the next part of my presentation, which is what we do in NAPG. Our mission really is to try to professionalize the field. And we do that by promoting and credentialing the education of professionals in the field of gerontology. And we often have been asked, why? Why do we do this? Why do we credential the practice experience and the education of people in gerontology? And honestly, the answer is that it was actually in response to student demand for recognition from an organization that would differentiate their preparation and expertise from those who attended little more than a weekend workshop and then called themselves gerontologists, right? As we all know, there is no state or Canadian province that licenses gerontologists. So unlike nurses or social workers or other people in helping professions, there is no license for a gerontologist. And as far as I know, as far as we know, NAPG is the only independent international organization that promotes and recognizes the preparation of legitimate gerontology professionals. And our students, when I was a member of a gerontology faculty, and other students that we encountered at conferences and other meetings and gatherings, expressed a great deal of frustration about this phenomenon of sort of the weekend workshop, right, where people would go and take a short course or read a manual or what have you and come out with a certificate that said that they were a gerontologist. And so one of the very reasons that NAPG exists as an organization is to promote the careers of appropriately trained gerontology professionals who have the skills or competencies to provide high quality care. And in a broader context, our purpose is to enhance and professionalize gerontology. Okay, so some years ago, we developed this model that shows how we understand this professionalization process. We developed the model that I'm showing you. We've tweaked it a little bit since then, but initially we developed it in 2009 for the International Association on Gerontology and Geriatrics meeting in Paris. And we, as I say, we modified it a little bit, and eventually we published it in a journal article in Gerontology and Geriatrics Education in 2012. And as you can see, the three, let's see if I do this, can you see my little cursor here? The three sort of central aspects of the model, the three pillars are accredited programs, credentialed gerontologists, and employed professionals. On the academy side of the model here, these variables, we show how increased student demand for gerontology programs is related to increased resources, which is related to enhanced program quality. And we think excellent programs in gerontology would be eligible for accreditation, which in turn also results in increased program resources and increased student demand. On the community side of the model, on the right side, we see that highly qualified professionals improve the quality of care and raise public perceptions and expectations about the quality of care for older people and positive public perceptions. And in turn, they tend to increase student demand for gerontology degrees. So it's a kind of a loop here that we think is a good thing. And each of these three central elements are how we see the field being professionalized. So NAPG has worked since 2005 to accomplish this central piece, which is the credentialing of individual gerontologists. I'm glad to say that since we did this model in 2009, a new accreditation organization was developed in 2016, the Accreditation for Gerontology Education Council, or AGEC. and it was developed to accredit gerontology degree programs at the associate, baccalaureate, and master's level. And actually, it has now accredited 7 degree programs, and that includes UNC Greensboro. And there are 2 reviews that are currently in process. And I think 2 other programs are currently in the process of reaccreditation. And what we're showing on this slide is the cover of the AGEC handbook, and that's posted on the AGEC website. And if you want to access that, I'm sure Elise can put the website in the chat. It's www.geroaccred.org. Okay, so if you are interested, well, you can go in and see that. And as I mentioned earlier, AGEC uses the AGI competencies in its accreditation review process to assess student learning. So if I go back to the model for just a minute, you can see that really the first 2 components of what we see as a professionalized gerontology, accredited programs, credentialed gerontologists, these 2 components have kind of been addressed, right, with the 2 organizations that I've been talking about. Accredited programs, programs are now accredited by AGEC. Credentialing gerontologists, we've been doing that for some time. The piece that is less well developed is employed professionals, right? And this is the part of the model and the pillar that I think needs the most work, and I'm going to be talking about that later on in the 3rd part of the presentation. All right, so before I go to the next part, are there any questions? Remember to stop here if there's anything in the chat, or otherwise I'd be happy to respond, or I'll move on, whichever you would prefer.
No questions in the chat. If you have a question, please just unmute and ask Dr. Schafer.
Okay. I will press on then. So this slide just sort of shows, some fast facts about the organizations. I call this NAPG in a nutshell. We were founded, as I think I mentioned, in 2005. We're a not-for-profit 501c3. We have 444 members as of my last count, which was last month, and they reside in 41 states and 8 countries. Of those 444 members, 103 of them are student members. And as a matter of fact, we have NAPG members who are graduates of the UNCG program. And we also have student members who are current students at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Our members are credentialed based on either completed coursework and or a competency exam, and I'll have a bit more to say about that later. And also we have 4 categories of regular members, which I'll also talk about in a minute. And all of our members, regardless of what particular credential they have, are entitled to use the designation CPG, or Credentialed Professional Gerontologist, after their names. And again, I'll say more in a bit about that. And our members renew their membership after 2 years and renew their credentials by completing 20 hours or units of professional development activity. That can be several different kinds of things. People can take online courses if they want to do that. They could do in-service trainings. They could attend conferences or workshops. We have a number of members who are academics, faculty members, and they can publish articles, publish books, give conference presentations, and all that counts toward the renewal of the credential. Okay. So as I mentioned, we have several different types of credentials. The first is what we call the gerontologist credential, and that is designed for people who are graduates of gerontology degree programs at the master's or doctoral level. What we call the gerontological specialist, these are baccalaureate graduates, and usually they have a BA or a BS in gerontology or aging studies, and they normally are providing services to older adults. The gerontological coordinator designation are folks who have a background at the associate arts or associate science level, or they may have certificates. And for the most part, these folks are service providers, and they have to be credentialed by us. They have to have a minimum of 24 units in gerontology. And last but not least, the professional scholar affiliate designation. And that actually is designed for people like me. When I was in graduate school, I think there was only one doctoral degree program in gerontology. I think the first one was at USC, if I remember correctly. And so in my case, my PhD is in a different field other than gerontology, but I did my doctoral dissertation on a gerontology topic. And of course, I've spent my entire career in the field, including as a faculty member and whatnot. So this designation is basically designed for folks like me. But not all of our professional scholar affiliates are academics necessarily. We also have some people who are professionals, practicing professionals, but again, they may not have a gerontology degree because such degrees were not readily available at one time. And so these people have spent long, distinguished careers of decades sometimes in providing services to older adults. Our fees, this sort of speaks to the fact that we are a nonprofit organization. We charge $200 for the graduate level gerontologist designation. And what that means is if a person applies to NAPG for membership and a credential as a gerontologist, the $200 covers the review of the application material and is good for the first 2 years of a person's membership. So it's both an application fee and a 2-year membership fee. If we do not accept the person into NAPG, then we reimburse the fee. So there is no, there's no financial risk to apply to NAPG. At the baccalaureate level, the gerontological specialist, we charge $150. $100 for gerontological coordinators, and for professional scholar affiliates, who we figure are, tend to be older like me and farther along in their careers, we charge $250. And also it's a little more complicated to review resumes and CVs than it is to look over transcripts. So that's the reason for the higher fee there. And as I mentioned, we require our members to renew membership and their credential every 2 years by completing 20 hours of professional development activity, and we charge $50 for that. Our student members, for students who are enrolled in a graduate program, either as master's students or doctoral students, the fee is $20 for a review of their transcript, just to verify enrollment, basically. For students at the baccalaureate level, it's $15 and $10 for students at the associate level. Okay. So I'm going to talk a bit about the review and admission process for people who have degrees in gerontology at whatever level. What we do is we review transcripts and we compare the coursework that a person has to the recommendations at various academic levels from the Academy for Gerontology and Higher Education, or AGI. We use the standards and guidelines document for that. For the professional scholar affiliate, I mentioned, we review people's resumes or CVs, since these are people who do not have a degree in gerontology. For people who do not have a degree in gerontology and also who do not have a long career of service in the field, we also have an exam that we administer, and that's the competency exam that you see on the screen there. And it is composed of CR, which is constructed response, otherwise known as essay questions, and an MC, otherwise known as multiple choice questions. So that's the exam. And we give that basically for people who don't have a degree, don't have a long career of service, but who say, but I know this field and I know I can pass this exam. So that's the exam, right, that we have. Now, I think and it's based on the competencies from the IAGI competencies. And I think as time goes on in the future and as more programs adopt the competencies and put them into into their curriculum, then we're probably going to transition from transcript review to simply doing the competency exam for everybody who applies for membership. We have spent several years doing research on measuring competencies. I think Elise mentioned in my introduction earlier that that's one of my interests, is measuring competencies. And we've done it using primarily essay questions or constructed response questions. And I and my colleagues have reported on this research at several conferences. And we also use these questions for exit exams or program evaluations. We sometimes are asked by gerontology programs to administer an exam to their students or to their graduates. Most gerontology programs have to go through, as all programs, whether it's sociology or whatever it is, psychology, have to go through periodic program reviews. And sometimes institutions like to see an independent organization provide some kind of test or evaluation of student learning. So we're happy to do that using our competency exam. We also have had arrangements, partnerships with a couple of institutions. These happen to be at the associate level, associate arts, where they were in community college districts that required some kind of exit exam for all their graduates. So we were able to provide the NAPG competency exam for graduates of those programs. Having said all that, though, a question that a lot of people ask, or that you may be asking, is a credential from NAPG valuable? I mean, why would one want to do this? And is it worth it? And is it something I should think about? So I can tell you that I am sometimes, asked by employers. They say, well, we've had someone apply for a job here and they say they're a member of NAPG, and what is that exactly? And so on. So I can do some explanation. And I can explain that the NAPG credential, the only one that exists since there is not a license, says basically that people have achieved sort of the highest standard of academic and practice achievement that we recognize in the field of gerontology. Sometimes employers will also contact me and ask if one of their employees who is a NAPG member is current in their credentials. So obviously people do pay attention to that. But, our members, among other things, what they say is that they like using the letters, right? They like using the CPG after their names. And, I like doing that as well. And I like it because people do ask me, what is the CPG thing? And it provides an opportunity to talk about gerontology and what it is as a field and a profession. And so it's a good conversation starter, oftentimes. And I know our members like using the letters. Congrats on the newsletter. It's a great way to keep in touch and be recognized. We try to have some member benefits beyond simply the conferring of the credential and the use of the CPG. Back when we used to be encountering one another more frequently at conferences and such, we used to do networking events. COVID, unfortunately, has sort of curtailed that for a while, but I think we're picking back up on that, and that's a good thing. And we also put out a newsletter where we invite our members to share with us what their accomplishments and awards and recognition have been in the past few months or so that we can inform other members of the organization about accomplishments. So that's, I think, what that comment refers to. My boss likes the certificate and thinks it looks good for our business. all NAPG members receive a certificate of membership, suitable for framing. Mine is up there on the top of my bookcase, and some of our members have indicated that they, again, their bosses and their colleagues find it looks good, and it bespeaks again to the professionalism that they bring to this, and not simply a weekend workshop kind of experience. And the last one I picked out here, being a member is a way to promote the profession. I think this comment was from a faculty member who said, for whom, having a CPG, is not necessarily the ticket to promotion and tenure, but that said, it's nice to be able to use it to just signify and identify yourself as a member of a profession. Okay. Okay, so at this point, let me stop before I get into the future and where we're going, to see if there are any questions that have popped up, or anything that anyone would like to ask about.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
For the renewal, and my apologies if this is in your next part, but
No.
For the renewal, what does that process look like? Is it, again, so you said like and I'll use myself as an example. So for faculty, conference presentations or workshops or what have you, is that like putting together a portfolio? Is that like submitting our CV? What would that look like?
Yeah. Well, on our website, we have some basic guidelines. We have a form that people download when they renew, so that they can fill out, they can fill in some of it. And then we ask for documentation, right, for the activities that you're enumerating. So there are all different kinds of, our members are in all different kinds of jobs and doing different kinds of things. So some of them, as I say, use courses, some use conference presentations, etc. So you can put in, if you're renewing, you can send us, a CV where you underscore the presentations that you've made. If you have taken courses, there's usually some kind of CEU form that you can, turn in. So we accept a whole variety of documentation, right, about your activities. And I will say also that we had some discussion about this in the NAPG board some years ago, about what kinds of things we would accept as appropriate for renewal. So all the things that I've mentioned, previously, courses and presentations that you might do. I mean, if you've written a book, that's enough. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need 20 different things. We explain that on our renewal page, that it's like an hour, a couple of hour for hour for attendance at workshops. But if you are giving a presentation, then obviously you've invested more time to do that. So you get to double count that, and so on. But we made a decision some years ago that we wouldn't just count things that are involved in gerontology per se, although mostly that's what our members provide. But let's say you are starting a new consulting business, right, as a gerontologist, and you realize that you don't know anything about marketing, and you would really like to know something in order to get your business noticed and off the ground, et cetera. And there is a course that you can take that will give you what you need to know in order to do that. Well, we consider that, professional renewal, professional growth and development. So you'd have to write it up and make a case why we should count this, but we're happy to accept things like that, as well. I mean, so in other words, it's professional development, and people have different categories of professional development that's, meaningful and germane to them, right? So we can count a variety of things. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Great. Anything else before I press on here? Okay, so where to from here? Our overriding professional goal, and arguably the most important thing I think that we can do as an organization, is to further develop that part of the model that I highlighted earlier that I showed you, which is the hiring of credentialed graduates of accredited programs, right? I mean, the issue or the problem for us, as we all know, as gerontologists, is because in part employers don't always understand what it is a gerontologist knows and what a gerontologist can do. They sometimes don't think about even hiring somebody with a gerontology background. I mean, they may instead hire a social worker or some such because they're a little more familiar with that role or that designation. And so that's the kind of thing that we really want to change, right? We want employers to have a better grasp of what our profession brings and how it influences and can provide a better quality of life and better services for older adults. And the interdisciplinary nature of our background really does equip gerontologists to be able to address the whole person, after all. There's a lot of emphasis, which I'm sure that all of you are acquainted with, from your program and your activities, the whole idea of age-friendly environments, right? Age-friendly universities and age-friendly communities. Well, the whole idea of an age-friendly environment, whether it's a community or a university or even a transportation system, whatever it may be, is really inherently interdisciplinary, isn't it? And we argue that we would argue that people with a gerontology background who have had a broad education that combines a view from many different fields is inherently well positioned to carry forward things like age-friendly activities in communities or in organizations. But the challenge is to try to get employers to understand the value of that and how we bring, as gerontologists, something to the table that you don't always get if you hire somebody from, another field, right? So this is really how we're going to try to focus our activity and our attention going forward, because really the first two parts of the model that I showed you, the accreditation of programs, which AGEC does, and the credentialing of individuals, of people, which is what we've been doing, those parts are kind of, it's not, things might not change, but I mean, they are, at least they're present, right, in some form. A more systematic way to get people hired with gerontology backgrounds is the thing that we feel like is most lacking. So how might we go about doing that? So we think that there are some steps that we can do in NAPG that can help us move toward this goal of creating a better employment environment, a better hiring environment for gerontology graduates. We think that it is important to promote partnerships among aging organizations and major employers to review skills, training, and to facilitate employment. And we're thinking of organizations like the Aging Network, large long-term care organizations, community-based providers, and gerontology professional organizations. I mean, one of the things that has driven me crazy for many years now is the fact that if you look at the Older Americans Act and the reauthorization efforts of the Older Americans Act year after year, nowhere are you going to see gerontologist as a job title, and I think this is just, I mean, how crazy making is that, So we hope that, for instance, as the Older Americans Act is reauthorized, in the coming years, that we can make sure we insert language about gerontologists being a preferential group for the purpose of hiring. And I also think, and in much of the Aging Network as a consequence, there are so many people who are employed in the Aging Network, not to say they aren't great folks, but many of them have had very little training, if any, hardly, in gerontology. And so we really want to focus on what we can do to make some inroads, if possible, in that area. And there are large organizations all over the country that operate living communities, continuing care retirement communities, all kinds of housing communities. And so if we can sort of get into that network so they can begin to appreciate the skills that gerontologists can bring to their organizations, we think that would be a great thing to do. And we also don't feel like aging organizations. I mean, and when I say aging organizations, I'm talking about professional organizations. They don't always advocate as we think they should for gerontologists and for gerontology graduates to get jobs and to be hired. And that includes, the Gerontological Society of America, after all. I mean, it wasn't until I think, God, what was it? I think 1990 or something, that gerontologist was even a category that you could select when you signed up to be a member of GSA. So I spent, like the first half or so of my career, checking the sociology box, even though it was really a gerontologist as I identified. And if you figure the Gerontological Society of America isn't opening the door to gerontologists, then, where are we, as a field and as a profession? So this is one of the areas that NAPG, with our members, now it's not, when I say NAPG, I'm talking about the board, of course, sort of providing some direction, but I'm also talking about NAPG members. I mean, this is the kind of thing where we would like to mobilize our members. I mean, we have, what did I say earlier, 444 members, and of those, 300 and some odd are regular members, not students. And so what can we do collectively as an organization? I mean, we're not huge, but we're sort of large enough now, I think, where we have a bit of critical mass, where we can kind of help steer our members into doing some of these kinds of things and making inroads into organizations and employers. We want to create incentives for students to choose gerontology as a career and as a major. And we think a good way to do that is through internships and placements and what have you. And in order to do that, this comes along with the partnership idea. Some of the large employers who hire people for continuing care retirement communities and for other kinds of jobs around the country, we'd like to see those organizations and the professional organizations that they're part of, so that there are larger organizations that serve the interests and the needs of some of these employer groups, to get them to think in terms of providing scholarships and internships for students at different universities and colleges to select gerontology as a field of study. I mentioned earlier that one of the reasons NAPG exists is because there isn't any licensing of gerontologists, and that's in the United States, and it's also in the Canadian provinces. And this is problematic for a variety of reasons. One of them is because of reimbursement issues. I mean, if you're a licensed social worker, for instance, or a licensed member of some other fields, it makes it easier for your organization to be reimbursed for your work. That doesn't happen in gerontology. The problem with licensing, however, unfortunately, is that it isn't a national process. It's a state-by-state process, and that makes it challenging. As far as I know, there is no state, as well as no Canadian province, where licensure is currently either in the works or has already been handled. That doesn't mean we shouldn't think about this and work in that direction. And I can say to you definitely that as much as I like NAPG, if it were possible to have a licensing mechanism in all of the states and NAPG no longer needed to exist in order to provide a credential for people, it would make me happy. It would be okay with me, because the important thing is to have gerontologists recognized as the professionals they are with the skills that they have, and to make sure they get an equal shot at employment. And finally, as I sort of mentioned a bit earlier, we think it's important to partner with an assortment of organizations, but some of these organizations, Southern Gerontological Society, American Society on Aging, AARP, AJEC, AGI, and GSA, to be advocates for gerontology degree programs. That's another area where I think we have kind of missed the boat in gerontology. It's not just that our organizations don't advocate for us as individuals and professionals. These organizations aren't very good advocates for gerontology degree programs, and that is an important component, I think, of making sure that there continues to be good, high quality graduates produced. Again, not that it isn't okay and fine, to have a gerontology minor or something if you're a sociology major, but in my opinion, it is better to have a gerontology degree, right, from an accredited institution like UNCG and some of the others that we have accredited. So I will say that certainly, AJEC and NAPG are working hard to try to make sure that gerontology degree programs get their due and their recognition in this, large landscape here. And so we are about making that argument, right? And finally here, this is just a shot of our seal. If you are a NAPG, if you become a NAPG member, I will give you this seal in several different formats, and you can use it if you like on, business cards or brochures or on your website or what have you. And again, it hits the themes that we're trying to underscore, that we support professional gerontologists, right? And that we are an international credentialing organization, as I suggested, with members, I think, from what did I say, eight different countries, I believe. And last but not least, my contact information. This is our website, which I love for you to go and check out. That will give you more detailed information about all the things that I've talked about today. We have our post office box. This is my email address and my phone. So if you'd like to be in touch with me, I'd be very happy to have you do that. I would love to talk with you, answer any questions you might have, give you any information, or direct you however I can. Okay, so that is it. Shall I stop sharing my screen? Let me do that. Elise, is that okay?
Yes.
Stop sharing?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. I will stop sharing right here. There we go. Okay, there we are.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Dr. Schafer. We'd like to open things up to the audience now. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I would like to say thank you, Dr. Schafer, for your presentation. I'm also in California, in San Diego. And
Okay.
I have been a clinical dental hygienist for 25 years. So I'm very interested in bridging my gerontology degree with my dental hygiene experience. So I probably will be reaching out to you at some point in the future.
Sure.
So thank you for your information and excellent presentation.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, by all means, please do. And I will say that a lot of our members, actually in NAPG, they have a gerontology degree, but they also may have, like you, a particular focus area of specialized, expertise, right? So we certainly have people. I don't know if we have any dental hygienists. I'm not sure about that, but we certainly do have people who are financial planners. One of my former students at San Francisco State University is an audiologist, as well as a member of NAPG. When she applied, she said, "I don't know if you remember me, but I consider you my advisor for life," which I loved, right? So she joined, the organization. So we do have a lot of people who have different professional backgrounds in addition to their gerontology background. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to joining.
Great. We'd love to have you join.
Thank you.
anything else in the chat that I should see? Okay.
Nothing in the chat. I
Okay.
wanted to speak a little bit to just support this idea of credentialing. So some of you know this, some of you do not, but my background's really in public health education, and we have a credentialing through that called a Certified Health Education Specialist, or a CHES. And so I've been a CHES for almost 20 years now, but I haven't really been a practicing health educator since I came to the gerontology program at UNCG. And so I've been speaking with Dr. Schafer a lot about NAPG. Before I talk about that, in my experience, when I was on the job market with this CHES certification, I definitely was applying to jobs that would hire only CHES individuals. And then I was also applying for jobs who nobody had any clue what the CHES meant or its value, and I had to explain it and defend it. And so I can kind of see some parallels here with gerontology. But Dr. Schafer will tell you that I've been having conversations with her about applying to become certified in gerontology, because I've been it now since 2017. I've been working 100% in the gerontology field. And so I'm waiting for my CHES certification to expire, and then I'm going to go with NAPG. So I just want everybody to know that this is the direction that I'm heading in, and I believe in it personally and professionally. Everybody who's been through the gerontology program with me knows that we talk about the history of gerontology and how it's still emerging and it's still evolving. And if we want to be part of this story and the future of gerontology, we really have to be supportive of efforts like the credentialing and the hiring of professional gerontologists. So I think it's really, really important. And it was one of the reasons why, I wanted Dr. Schafer to come and speak to you about NAPG, because I see so much value in it. And it may not be immediate, but I think you'll see that in the future, this is going to be, this is what's going to get you jobs.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Elise. Yes, I can say, well, I should add, in fact, I thought I was going to say at one point, I think I forgot in the presentation, but we have just recently trademarked the CPG, which is the letters, like the CHES that Dr. Eifert was talking about. We recently have trademarked it, and I have been really pleased, over time to see more and more people. I mean, and they're not people I know personally, but they're members, right, of our organization who have been credentialed by us, so that I see their names, when they have like published an article or somebody giving a conference presentation or whatever, and I see their name and, degree, MA CPG or, PhD CPG, and I think, yes, this is really good. And that's why I really always encourage everybody who is our one of our members to use the designation, because just like that little our members say thing that I put up there, people do ask about it. As Elise was saying, people who didn't know what the CHES stood for, would ask her, what is this? And that gives you then an opportunity to talk about yourself as a gerontologist and how it is a field that is being, professionalized, and how you do have a certain body of knowledge and you have skills because you have been educated according to the gerontology competencies. And so it's important, I think, to talk about that. And it's important now that we have the competencies, I believe, in my opinion, to talk about what we know and what we can do, so that we have a common vocabulary, a common language, and we can tell people who aren't as knowledgeable and informed about our field, that we really do have, these sets of skills that are very useful and in many ways preferable perhaps to professionals from other fields. Not that that's, that they bring something to the table as well, but that we have things we bring to the table as gerontologists.
I have two really quick comments. Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. I will say that ever since I was in graduate school, I remember my first GSA conference, NAPG was there, and I had a professor that was walking by and kind of like grabbed my arm and like kept me going after I had already been talking with the person. So I will say, in thinking about getting the word out there, I think we need to do better on the academic side too. I think that at least my experience in my program, and I've gone a different route than the kind of heavy research agenda route than the program I was in, that with such a narrowed focus, I don't think we're telling a lot of graduate students in MS or PhD programs that credentialing could serve them well and be a benefit to them. It also adds to this book idea I've had now for like 2 years. But anyways, side thought. The second fun comment I wanted to make, you mentioned, people using or calling themselves a gerontologist or using kind of titles when they've done like a workshop. I will, fun story. I don't know if any of you caught this, maybe not. I'll embarrass myself for 2 seconds. Graduate school, we had a bachelor night group. So a group of like 5 of us would watch The Bachelors, and that was our, like, this is our one night out of the week. We're not going to be doing coursework in our graduate school programming. And one year, don't ask me which season, a contestant on The Bachelor called herself a gerontologist. And we were all, knee deep in graduate school PhD program. And we were all so angry that this person on TV was like, I'm a gerontologist, and I'm sitting here, are you serious? I'm doing this for what? I could be on TV calling myself this? Anyway, so that's my fun story of
I know. I mean, it makes people who have legitimate backgrounds and degrees justifiably crazy. And as I say, that honestly, that was the main reason back in 2005, 2006 that NAPG came into being, to try to be, an independent third-party organization that would say, there are legitimate gerontologists, and then there are the weekend workshop wonders, and that you need to be sure you're hiring, if you're going to hire a gerontologist, that you're hiring someone who actually has a legitimate background that has been, vetted and given the good housekeeping seal by an organization like ours, right?
Dr. Schafer, I think our first hump is going to be just getting people to recognize a gerontology degree and list that as a prerequisite, on job postings. It drives me crazy when I see very age-specific jobs and they don't list gerontology as a potential degree.
Yes. But there again, that's the work we need to do with employers, so that they understand, and the aging network, for God's sake, so that they understand that a gerontologist would in fact be the preferred degree, right, for an assortment of jobs, right.
Well, we're a little over time, and I know people need to go. So last call for any questions or comments.
So grateful. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate your coming and your participation. And please, I'm serious. If you want to be in touch with me and want more information or want to interact with me, by all means, just you can give me a call or send me an email, and I'll be happy to correspond with you further. Okay.
So that will conclude tonight's presentation. Dr. Schafer, thank you again for delivering such an enlightening presentation and sharing with us how important the professionalization of gerontology is. We appreciate you being here tonight and all the work that you and NAPG are doing to make sure the profession of gerontology is legitimized and recognized as it grows. I want to thank everyone in attendance for their time and attention this evening. Please go out and tell everyone about careers in aging. It also sounds like we need to go out and spread the word about credentialing. But thank you so much for coming, and just have a wonderful evening.